The story sets the scene with vivid descriptions of the cold night air, the muted moonlight, and the thoughts of an assassin. We meet Leon, the protagonist, who is praised for his work by Sir Daruth. However, Robert Daruth's glare hints at something darker. Daruth implies that Leon will meet his end that night. He acknowledges Leon's leadership as the Shadow Chief, attributing the family's growth to him. Leon modestly accepts, but is challenged by Daruth on whether the Shadows desire freedom. Leon insists they must obey orders without question. Daruth's interrogation unnerves Leon, especially when he asks about Leon's failure to enforce brainwashing. Leon is shocked, wondering how Daruth knows. We learn about the Robert family's method of controlling their assassins: brainwashing. Leon reveals he broke free from this conditioning. Daruth explains they use two collars for control, revealing the second collar's purpose with a snap. Suddenly, Leon is racked with intense pain, bleeding from his mouth. Daruth reveals the rage worm, an insect that eats at Leon's heart, allowing them to monitor his emotions. Enraged, Leon questions the necessity of such cruelty, wondering if brainwashing wasn't enough. This unveils Leon's backstory and the grim reality of his enslavement. Leon says that he was kidnapped at an age he does not remember, and he was raised as the Robert family's hunting dog. He somberly expresses that he was the head of the Shadow and lived his life without any emotions or a mind of his own. He continues that, coincidentally, he was able to learn a breathing technique called the Fire's Ring, and to prove that this was the divine skill of the best swordsman, he broke free from the brainwashing. He dwells into deep despair as he questions his life and wonders what kind of sins he has committed to die such a meaningless death. However, just then something flares up his spirit and he picks himself up, gritting his teeth and determined that this cannot end like this. He stands up, startling and surprising Daruth, who asks how he can even stand up in such a state. Leon's eyes glow and he glares at his opponent, preparing himself to attack. Daruth sees the wrath of the slave approaching him. He immediately raises his arm to counter. He slashes through our hero's body in just an instant. In the blink of an eye, we see our hero's body cut through with a sharp, cutting slash, blood sputtering out and his head rolling over on the ground as his eyes fill with emptiness. He then makes his leave and notices a small cut on his hand, wondering when was the last time he was injured. He's annoyed at being bitten by his own disposable hunting dog. Just then we see that our hero has not yet given up, his eyes still glaring at the torturer stepping away in disgust. But just before he gives up, the realization dawns upon him, and he contemplates his regrets, expressing that he is upset about living a life without a reason. He calls out desperately, exclaiming that he does not care if he fights a devil or a god. He wants to get revenge no matter what. That's when a charm starts to glow right beside him. A system window opens up and displays that he has been chosen by rage and his body will now be possessed. But then the system window turns red, expressing that the body of the vessel has died, and chaotically displays an error on the screen. In a change of setting, we are brought to a sunny and bright field where birds are chirping and the sun shines brightly. A woman's voice holds a toy in her hand as she calls for someone named Sunny to look at her, and a baby's voice echoes as he reaches out his hands at the woman calling her mama. The woman is in awe of the child and picks him up, holding him close to her chest, but the baby appears to be somewhat annoyed. The baby expresses that he still cannot get used to this, and the voice of our hero once again narrates, telling us that the woman cuddling him is Sylvia. He continues to tell us that it is still hard to believe while Sylvia holds him up in the air and playfully asks him to try and say, "Mom." Leon states that it is still hard to believe that he has been reincarnated as a woman's child with all the memories of his past life as an assassin. Sylvia holds Leon in her arms as she mentions that the weather is good today, and she wishes for the patriarch to be back home soon so he can give him a handsome name. Adding to his contemplation, he recalls that he was unable to complete the Fire's Ring in his past life, so he needs to be patient. He was called the best assassin in the Robert family's history, and so, in order to enact revenge, he needs to swallow his emotions for as long as it takes. Our baby hero is curious, gazing upon the luxurious mansion, wondering if this family is more than renowned. But just then his attention is diverted to a panicking voice that calls out to Sylvia, yelling out loud that the patriarch has arrived. When Sylvia is dazed upon hearing that her father is coming, Leon speculates that the patriarch is his grandfather. The atmosphere changes in the room as Sylvia and the maid both stand in a daze, and Leon experiences this change as he questions the sudden tension in the atmosphere. A voice yells out to make it known that the patriarch is entering, and a gate opens as a man follows through with 2 guards accompanying him. Leon expresses that just the man's existence is overwhelming. A royal gown flutters in the air as the man steps into the room, making our young hero squeak. In a baby voice, he speculates and acknowledges the man who has approached him, and Sylvia greets her father with respect. This is when Leon realizes his identity. He points out the golden blonde hair of the man, the flame-like red eyes, and his ice-cold aura. He explains the man to be the zenith of this continent, the northern king of annihilation. Glenn Zycart, our baby hero, appears to be concerned and dazed as the patriarch gazes upon his grandchild and wonders how the hell he got reincarnated into the most powerful family on the continent. Glenn, the esteemed patriarch of the house, exclaims that the baby will be named Leonardo, suggesting that the meaning of the name is to live like a shadow, as if the warrior is there, but also not there. Leon's baby eyes widen at this statement. It's hard for him to process how he was given the same name as his past life. Night falls upon the land eventually, and moonlight shines through the room as Leon pretends to be soundly asleep in his cot. But actually, he is wide awake and wondering if everyone else has gone to sleep. He sits up and contemplates the fact that after 100 days, he now finally has his chance. Sighing in satisfaction, he expresses that he should get started. He sits upright, crossing his legs to perform a certain stance, calling upon the fire ring ability. Our baby hero explains that this continent's normal training method uses breathing styles. One absorbs nature's energy and gathers the aura in the energy core. However, he adds that the fire rings he has obtained use a different path. He expresses that by using the fire ring, one can grow their mentality and body. He desires that if he can make Zygarde's swordsmanship his own, defeating and enacting revenge upon Daruth won't just be a dream. Analyzing himself, he is skeptical, but he points out that it's because of such a premature body filled with freezing energy that his body felt cold even after sleeping for more than 20 hours. He knows that he needs to break through them using the fire ring, but he expresses that throwing away such highly pure cold energy is a waste, although he questions if he can infuse it with the fire's flow and circulate it throughout. Some time has passed and our baby hero has concluded his training. Although he thinks that it is slow, he is still making very good progress. Just before he decides to move on to the next stage, he feels a bit agitated, and he feels the weight of his eyes as he slowly closes them to sleep. Leon has soundly slept in his crib, and this is when Glenn, the patriarch, emerges from the shadows to observe his grandchild. He raises his hand above Leon's head, and small sparkles of energy twinkle around him. Night changes into day, and the sun shines upon the window of the huge and luxurious mansion. The cutest protagonist, Leon, crawls on the floor, muttering nonsense, and Sylvia follows him throughout, encouraging him to crawl a little more while playfully squealing in joy. This goes on when suddenly Sylvia is called upon by a strange voice, and her attention is diverted towards the man who calls for her. Her face immediately lights up as she turns to face the source of the voice and calls the person the saint. The saint takes a slight bow to pay his respects to the lady, but requests her to simply address him as Sir. Leon's eyes widen upon seeing the man. He wonders if the person in front of him is someone called the Saint of the Rags, and enlightening us with more background upon the characters, our hero once again narrates that the saint has divine power, medical techniques and skills that can reach the ends of the world. However, he adds that although the man is the most famous physician, no one can see him due to his wanderlust. Coming up close, the saint gazes upon the baby, expressing that he came to see Sylvia after hearing about his birth, and he picks up Leon to gaze upon him closely. She says that the name of the child is Leon. The saint is taken aback, questioning if they named the child while knowing that it means shadow. Sylvia hesitantly agrees with the speculation, and the saint follows up with disappointment, not understanding what Glenn was thinking before naming the child. Leon observes their expressions as he notices that the two are being quite casual with each other. Nevertheless, the saint holds our baby hero firmly as he smiles in joy, wanting to have a closer look. He then places his hand over the baby's body and a strange energy flows and glimmers over our hero. The saint notices that there is something wrong, as is apparent by his facial expressions. Sylvia also notices this and asks the saint about it, and the man tells her that the baby has the bitter cold curse. He gives back the baby for Sylvia to hold as he continues to elaborate that the baby's energy circuit has been blocked off by ice energy. If they treat him correctly before his future checkups, he will not die. Sylvia's eyes widen in shock and her voice starts to shake as she states that the saint is lying. She does not believe this to be true, and just as the saint tells her about writing a prescription to start the treatment, a voice calls out to interrupt him. The voice belongs to a maid who rushes forward to the saint to tell him that the patriarch is looking for him. The saint lets her off, telling her that he will be there with the patriarch once he is done with the conversation. But the maid insists that the patriarch wants to see him right now. Accepting the call, the saint hesitantly takes his leave, expressing that the patriarch cannot get his timing right. Observing the situation, Leon thinks that knowing about the disease does not change anything because, as long as he can complete the fire ring on time, such a curse won't be an issue. This is when a teardrop falls onto his face, making him halt in his thoughts. Our baby hero gazes upon the crying face of Sylvia, who still believes it to be a lie. She promises that she is going to make it better no matter the cost. She is still in denial that her child is sick with the deadly disease. Leon's eyes widen and his heart skips a beat. He wonders what this emotion is, and he expresses that his heart is aching. He sees himself observing the poor woman, telling himself that he does not wish to see this among the wails and the screams. Sylvia suddenly stops crying when her baby's hand touches her face to wipe off the tears. Glenn was busy engaging in a conversation with the saint when suddenly a commotion rises from the other room, diverting their attention. The voices of the maid yell and call for Lady Sylvia to stop, and Glenn questions what the ruckus is all about. The maid follows after Sylvia as the yelling continues, and she warns her that the patriarch is inside the room. The door breaks open and Sylvia barges into the room. Despite the maid's best efforts, she glares at the patriarch while she huffs and puffs to catch her breath. The red eyes of the patriarch Glenn glare at his daughter as he confronts her about the reason for this ruckus. He mentions the rude and unsightly behavior, demanding a suitable answer, but he stops mid-sentence when he sees his daughter kneeling before him on the floor with tears in her eyes, begging him to save her child. However, the patriarch does not seem to be bothered as he sips away on his tea. Being persistent as she is, Sylvia exclaims that the patriarch is well aware of the child's state and how much the child means to her. She repeatedly asks him to save him, but adding to the bleak, intense atmosphere, the patriarch coldly questions why he would want to save someone who cannot contribute to the family. He expresses that the child is an example of how difficult a martial artist's life is. Of course, Sylvia's tears do not appear to stop as she wails and screams for her father. The cruel man then asks the guards to take her away, and the brutish men drag her out of the room. Sylvia's screams and wails can be well heard across the mansion as she desperately shouts at her father to save her child. The cries do not go unnoticed because the saint observes this commotion. He sighs in disappointment and calls the patriarch stubborn. This is when, in a shocking turn of events, the saint questions what the patriarch plans to do now when he has called him to look upon his grandson's condition. The patriarch overlooks the confrontation and quietly sips on his tea, asking the saint to give the details. He continues to do so, saying that, as Leon grows, the condition worsens with his age. But he emphasizes that thanks to the patriarch's aura pushing out some of the cold air, he will be fine for a bit. Following the patriarch's strange dilemma and behavior, the saint asks why he has named the child Shadow, expressing that there are many names that he could have chosen from. Interestingly, The patriarch mentions that the name Leon does not just mean shadow. He continues to enlighten the saint as he mentions that 1,000 years ago it had another meaning too. At the break of dawn, as the sun shines down, we are brought into the setting of the mansion. As Sylvia holds down a spoon with some medicine, she encourages Leon to gulp down the medicine provided by the saint. Anticipating a speedy recovery, the maid and Sylvia both close their eyes, wishing the baby to be healed. They open their eyes at the sound of the baby squealing and reaching out his hand for his mother. Sylvia celebrates in joy along with the maid Helen, happy that her son is healing and enduring. Helen agrees with the lady as she also adds that he must have understood their intentions. He notices the medicine to be the fire attribute medicine, which is creating warm air to push out the cold air from his mana circuits. Fast forwarding a couple of years, we are brought to a setting where our baby hero has grown. Leon narrates to fill in the gaps for us. He says that he started training after taking the medicine, and after achieving a groundbreaking first fire ring. 2 more years of training have passed. All grown up, our hero is not so much a baby anymore, and he expresses the same emotion as he continues to narrate his daily routine from the last 2 years. After playing with Sylvia and Helen around nap time and midnight, he would always train even more. Time has passed since the start of his training, and now our hero is 5 years old. We see a grown-up Leon sitting upright on his bed as he smiles in satisfaction, and a system window appears in front of him. Showing his achievements at such a young age, the window highlights that he has now finally achieved the second ring of fire. By this time, it is revealed that Leon has managed to create the 2-star ring of fire. Leon observes and gazes upon the message window as he contemplates the factors of the 2-star ring of fire. He elaborates that at this stage, the flames revolve in a cross formation and his energy observation gets more sensitive. The deep contemplation and celebration are, however, interrupted by Helen, who calls for Leon, expressing that he is up early this morning. She asks if she can take his laundry, and Leon approves. He observes Helen work her way through his laundry as he realizes that she cannot see the message window appearing before him. And now we learn, as Leon tells us, that the message windows first started appearing when he obtained the 1-star fire ring. In a flashback, our hero narrates that he did not know what it was at first, but he soon realized it to be a comfortable status window that lets him check all his stats. He also mentions Helen's strange reaction when he first started interacting with the window. He expresses that it was evident that the message was only available to him. Continuing the deep contemplation, Leon expresses that, although he has now achieved the 2 stars, his low stamina and the bitter cold curse remain. He strokes his chin and points out that improving like this would not have been possible if not for the fire attribute medicine. Reflecting on past events, he expresses that during these 5 years, Helen and Sylvia, along with everyone at the annex, have been looking after him diligently, taking care of him like a prince, rubbing the back of his head. He believes all this prince's treatment must have had an influence on him as well. But it soon dawns upon him that he still has a lot of time left, and he is only yet 5 years old. He then contemplates his condition, elaborating that the curse is a problem, and so is the low stamina, which work together to get in his way if he tries to move even a little bit. However, in his past life, he was known as the best assassin on the continent, and he had learned the greatest technique of the Ring of Fire. He adds that upon learning this Eckart's swordsmanship, he will be able to slay Daruth's neck. But as Daruth is one of the strongest transcendents on the continent, Leon knows that he won't be able to keep his mind stable if he goes insane from revenge. He concludes that even if it's slow, he needs to gain the power and finish him off when the opportunity arises. Just as our hero determines to train even harder, a voice calls at him, acknowledging that he is awake. He turns his attention towards the voice and finds his mother reminding him that they have to go somewhere today and asking him to get changed so they can leave. Leon looks out the window and elaborates that the powers that maintain the balance of the continent are called the 5 demons and 6 emperors. As Eckhart travels across the stone road, our hero continues to explain that of those powers, he has been born into the Zygarde family, which belongs to the 6 emperors. He adds that the emperors demonstrate a positive influence while the demons threaten the peace of the continent. He also explains that there are several other powers outside of these, and so there happens to be a judgment ceremony to determine if these powers are good or bad. Descartes follows into the gates of an annex as Leon expresses that today is the Zegard family's judgment ceremony. The gossiping mouths of the families that have already arrived at the ceremony echo throughout the hall as they chat and engage in meaningless conversation. The gossiping continues as they call out to other families and their sons. Just when there is talk about Sylvia and her son, it is seen that Sylvia walks into the hall with Leon holding her hand. The chatter in the hall rises as they call Sylvia an outcast. The cold faces of the families in the hall glare upon Sylvia as she walks in and observes the cutting eyes of the families that stand before her. As Leon walks along with his mother into the hall, the chatter continues, and they point out at Leon, gossiping about his height and the rumors of him being sick being true. There is refusal and denial in the words that cut through Sylvia's skin. She hears people questioning why the outcast son is participating in the judgment ceremony. The people express their hatred as they exclaim that they did not want to see the two, for it drops the ceremony standards. Leon notices the harsh words of the families from the direct line. He questions if there are some kinds of circumstances behind the words, but he immediately gets a hold of himself. He expresses that he does not care if they are talking ill of him. However, he is startled to hear the words of people calling his mother Sylvia shameless. Hardening his facial expressions, Leon expresses anger and is infuriated at the harsh words being thrown at his mother. He quickly snaps back into reality when Sylvia calls for him. She tells him that it's okay and asks him to just look at his mom. Our hero bravely accepts and moves forward with his mother, and just then a voice yells out to make it known that the patriarch is entering. He contemplates the long time since he has seen his grandfather as our hero gazes upon the shiny attire that the patriarch holds as he walks up to his throne. The powerful presence of the patriarch is known as he sits on the throne, and the announcer yells out his name. Glenn acknowledges that everyone has arrived at the ceremony, and Leon glares upon what is to happen next. The patriarch's hand swishes and a giant sword appears before the people in the hall. Leon is taken aback in nervousness as he questions if it is the sword of judgment, and then the heavy voice of the patriarch calls out for the judgment ceremony to begin. Glenn Zeikart has made the judgment sword appear in front of the audience for the judgment ceremony, which our hero explains that upon placing one's hand on the stone sword, the sword determines the mana ability that they possess. Glenn glances upon the audience when the announcer calls for the name of Burin Zeikart to begin the ceremony. Burin sits up enthusiastically at his call to be acknowledged. Leon observes Burin approach the stone sword, and he explains that from the age of 4 the skull of the child begins to close up, and from then on the child's mana ability remains stagnant. Loud and shining energy flares up around the hall atmosphere as Burin holds his hand upon the stone sword. Leon adds that this place is where the judgment ceremony takes place to determine the kid's mana ability. Green energy illuminates the hall, and applause follows as the audience discusses and judges the light that is being emitted. They conclude it to be the wind ability of great quality and applaud the boy. The patriarch also commends the great ability, commenting it to be an attribute well suited for a swordsman and encouraging the child to channel the wind forth. Next up, a boy from the vassal family of Runun is announced to come forward, and he sits up to acknowledge his call, observing and judging the different patterns and interactions. Leon concludes and explains that how far the light travels indicates the mana's purity, while the mana's attribute is determined by the sword's tip. He elaborates that this is how the Zygarde family determines their talent. He also observes the cheering and enthusiasm among the families as they applaud Runin for his ability. Commending his family name and comparing him with Baran, Leon notices that these people value their talent just as much as they value their life, and so he guesses that he won't be able to display good results. Although the Ring of Fire is on the 2-star levels, his mana circuits still have a lot of cold on them. As the announcer finally calls for our hero, Leon feels the weight of disapproving gazes from the families. Even the patriarch joins in this sentiment as Leon steps forward at Sylvia's urging. Despite not expecting anything extraordinary, Leon knows he needs to discover a mana attribute suitable for his body. Following Sylvia's guidance, he places his palm on the stone sword and to his surprise, a bright golden light emits from it. This light overwhelms his vision, replacing it with a scene of a man facing demonic creatures. Confused and intrigued, Leon watches as the man wields a shining sword, striking down the creatures with ease before snapping back to reality to focus on the task at hand, the stone sword. Looking at the sword, Leon is shocked to see that the emitted light hasn't even reached halfway. Mockery and laughter erupt from the families, taunting Leon for his lackluster performance. Despite the patriarch's silent observation, the commotion draws his attention. His commanding voice brings a halt to the ridicule, and as the families disperse, Glenn, disappointed, contemplates the situation. Suddenly, the hall is once again illuminated by the golden light, catching Glenn's attention. Recognizing the familiar aura, he realizes its significance. It's the signature power of the Zygarde family's first patriarch, capable of overpowering demonic flames. This realization dawns upon him with profound impact. He notices the golden flame-like light emitting from the stone sword to be the golden flame aura. His eyes widen at the shocking sight. At this point, all he could do was stand there in a daze, nothing more and nothing less. Abruptly switching settings, we see our hero grow twofold since the last time we saw him. Once again gazing upon the message window to take a glance at his stats, he reaches out his finger at the screen, wondering if it is time for him to reach the 3-star ring of fire already narrating over the scene. He tells us that 7 years have already passed since the judgment ceremony, and he has now turned 12 years old. He explains that with consistent training, he is now at the doorstep of reaching the 3 fire rings. Moving forward in the present, Leon plans to begin training soon when suddenly Sylvia's voice calls at him and she approaches him to ask why he is not ready for the occasion yet. She asks him to leave quickly before they get late. Leon obediently agrees with his mom and contemplates the fact that the second judgment ceremony has come to face him once again. As we are once again brought back to the judgment ceremony hall, the voice of the announcer commends the last family competitor and calls for the judgment ceremony's end. Leon wonders if it is because it's the judgment ceremony of the indirect bloodlines today that the ceremony has ended earlier than expected. This is also when the patriarch calls for his name, and acknowledging the patriarch, Leon addresses his call. Glenn confronts Leon for not responding to the basic training orders that he has been receiving for the last month. But our hero is confused and dazed at the sudden confrontation. He does not know what the patriarch is talking about. Just then, Sylvia walks in to address the concern. Leon, on the other hand, is taken aback at the fact that his mother knew of this, but not him. Despite Sylvia's desperate attempts, the patriarch coldly denies to entertain any such thoughts. He expresses that if one cannot walk, they must crawl in order to train. The patriarch does not like to play around. He confronts and questions her if she will leave the family once again with the child. She is startled and forced to stand in a daze. As observing his mother's expressions, Leon understands why she gets treated so harshly. It is because she had abandoned the family once before. He explains that Sylvia has had traces of learning martial arts but no mana energy. Leon understands that a member of the direct lineage that has left on her own and came back crawling would be treated poorly. However, he steps up in front of the patriarch, making his emotions of anger clear. Now he is her son, and he cannot watch his mother get treated so harshly. Looks like a confrontation is imminent, but will our hero's grandfather actually show him mercy for standing up to his mother in spirit and determination to protect and shield his guardian? Leon walks up the hall to confront the patriarch while Sylvia desperately calls for him to stop this madness. She yells that she will fix everything. Once again denying his mother's wish, Leon walks up in front of the patriarch and sheds light on the matter. He expresses that, as the patriarch has ordered, he will begin his training next month. Seeing the bravery and determination of our hero, the current martial hall master asks if he was not made aware of this training lease. He expresses that even if he wasn't, he should not pursue the training with his current condition. As he is still sick, he presses that Leon should give it up. The show of bravery does not end here, as Leon is persistent and tells the Martial Hall Master that it is okay, and he wants to live up to the Zycart name. The intense pressure of the Patriarch's aura courses through Leon's body, and he feels the immense force of the Patriarch's ability. He is taken aback and startled, as is apparent by a small spatter of blood that drops on the floor. Leon's eyes widen as he firmly tightens his fist. He concerns and points out that just the Patriarch's glare can do so much, elaborating that the feeling is as if his heart is being crushed by the immense force of the aura. Helen and Sylvia rush to his aid, and they comfort the distressed hero as the Martial Hall Master joins them. Sylvia cannot see her son being pressed on like this, and she immediately hugs him to protect him while screaming for her father to stop. He grits his teeth and flares up in anger. Moving forward at the Patriarchy, he continues to make a point that he will now live as Leon Zycart and will bring back Sylvia to her original position in the family. Yelling at the Patriarch, Leon confronts him as he tells him that he was raised in a separate building of the residence and he does not know how high in the societal ranks the Zycart family is, so he suggests that he would like to learn that through training. Sweat trickles down his face, but his intentions are pure and strong. Breathing heavily and attempting to catch his breath, Leon stands before the Patriarch as he tells him that he will need to have the instructor prepare, accordingly not to disappoint him. Just hearing these words, Leon calmly lets go and slowly falls to the ground, with Sylvia and Helen rushing to his aid. A change of setting now takes us to the training grounds, where swords clank with each other as the children train and spar with each other while an instructor observes their moves. We are then introduced to the intermediate Martial Hall Master, Karen Zycart, who questions the claim that the boy was too weak to even properly move. A nervous messenger reports to the Martial Hall Master as he elaborates that many maids have overheard the conversations between the saint and the Patriarch, and it is definite that the boy is suffering from a serious illness. Karen deepens in thought as he recalls that the boy's body was definitely in bad condition when he saw him earlier today in the judgment ceremony and all the other times he's seen him, but he wonders how the child was able to withstand his father's aura. Concluding his contemplation, he recalls that Sylvia was known to be more talented than anyone else. Following his deep thinking, he calls the messenger to place a maid in their building and to do so as quickly as possible. Chanting the name of the respected Patriarch, the Secretariat guards salute and make way for him as he walks down his path into the annex. A mysterious man with long red hair and pointy ears lies comfortably on a couch, his face hidden by a hat. The Patriarch approaches the man and addresses him as Lemmer, asking him to stop pretending to be asleep and to get up. Lemur sits up immediately at this call and commends that the Patriarch really is amazing. This is when we are introduced to the brilliant sword Lemmer Dias. He elaborates that the Patriarch is the only one his sleeping techniques don't work on. The Patriarch exclaims that Lemmer has not matured even after 50 years, but Lemmer laughs it off, stating that people don't really change, and besides, he is an elf anyway. Observing the Patriarch's concerned look, he asks if he is here to talk about his grandson too, and he adds that Sylvia had come too. This surprises the Patriarch, and he explains that she asked him to make sure that Leon does not get hurt. Lemmer stands up to face the Patriarch as he elaborates that if he is here to ask him the same, he is wasting his time. Glenn stands firm as he asks Lemmer not to lessen the intensity of the training, stating that he does not want any weaklings. Taken aback, Lemmer gasps and covers his mouth to express the sheer shock that the Patriarch has put him through. Just as the realization dawns upon him, he bursts out in awe and flutters, stating that the Patriarch must love his grandson very much and is projecting that love onto him, which he could not give to Sylvia. Adding on, Glenn asks Lemmer not to go easy and to fail all those who are unworthy so that only the worthy ones can receive his training. Lemmer agrees with this claim and expresses that he will do as he wishes. Concluding their conversation, the Patriarch asks for his leave and steps away as Lemmer enthusiastically sees him off. After the Patriarch has left, Lemmer dwells and wonders what Leon is like as he stands across his table and thinks of different training regimes. The message window appears once again to showcase our hero's now updated abilities and stats, highlighting that he has now achieved the third ring of fire. Our hero is a sight for sore eyes, and we see him once again as he interacts with the message window. He smiles to contemplate his achievement and expresses that the 3-star rings really do feel different, and he adds that the Zygarde's training is infamous for its difficulty. He exclaims that just being a 3-star fire ring is not enough, and he adds that he needs to have a good foundation to be able to build tall buildings and survive. He imagines himself as a commandant in the Zygarde family as he continues to state that he will excel more than anyone else so that all the guys who have mocked him will shut up. And then he empathizes with the heavenly swordsman Dareth Robert, determining that he will not rest easily until he has slain him. However, just then, our hero is snapped back into reality when a voice calls to him. He looks over to find Sylvia, his mom, calling to him and asking why he is still up. She sits across from him on his bed, and upon questioning by Leon about what she is doing up so late, she mentions that since he is going to the training hall tomorrow for training, she wanted to talk to him. Before he leaves, she gazes upon her child and questions, must he really go? She comes clean and reveals that she does not want him to go. She elaborates that Leon does not express when he is hurting, adding in concern that he might get injured or hurt badly. Persistent as she is, she exclaims that she actually wants him to go, but she cannot help the concern as she voices it and asks him to postpone his enrollment to next year. But Sylvia is taken aback when Leon blatantly refuses and denies this request made by his mom, and recalling all the bad and humiliating moments, he elaborates that he cannot stand it when everyone from the direct or indirect bloodlines, or even when the workers from their annex see her, their eyes fill up with disgust. He exclaims that he can't stand it at all. Sylvia is speechless at this digression, but Leon continues to comfort his mother as he elaborates that he believes that she will be treated better if he does well in training. Nevertheless, she smiles and she fidgets and plays with her fingers before she nervously states that she is sure Leon had thought it was strange why they live separately and why people talk badly about them. She recalls her memory to explain that she fell in love with his father, coincidentally when she was on a mission, but it was difficult for her to be with him since he was just a knight. Then she narrates that she shut down her monikers and left the family. She also tells Leon that he actually has a sister named CIA who is 10 years older than him. She recalls and tells that they were living peacefully when Eden's executive ambushed them, and amidst the battle, she expresses that Leon's father was not that powerful, and unfortunately she was pregnant with him at the time, and somberly expressing, she tells that there was nothing they could do against them. However, she adds that his father had hired guards without her knowledge, but she regretfully informs that they arrived at the scene too late because by then his father and sister were already dead. She concludes the story, elaborating that so this is why she came back to the family, not knowing what to do and why the family treats them like sinners. Adding on, she tells him that she really could not say anything against it. Leon thinks about this whole situation and deems his mother selfish. Elaborating, he tells that she threw away her responsibilities in the name of love and came back crawling to be saved. He expresses that he now understands why the family treats her so coldly. However, emotions take over our hero, and he states that she is the one who gave him a new life and showed him affection for the first time, and he makes a point that even if everyone else calls her selfish, to him, she is the only mother he has had in both lives. He addresses his mother and tells her that he will be fine, so he asks her not to worry. Gazing into each other's eyes for a moment, Leon smiles at his mother while he reminds himself that even if everyone else calls her selfish, she is his only mother, and he can always get his revenge after he helps her regain her position in the family. Mumbling turns into slow tears, and slow tears turn into sobbing as Sylvia wails in front of Leon, surprising him. He asks her to stop crying, and this mother-son interaction ends here. Leon sees his mother out of his room as he sighs and expresses that reassuring her was really hard. He then sits on his bed once again as he plans to check the malleability of the Ring of Fire before he can sleep, mentioning that he does not have a lot of time before the training starts. And he sits in a unique stance, performing the technique as blue flames rise and flare up in the room. Viciously, he notices that the rings spin faster now that they are at level 3, but he wonders what it will be like once they get to the intermediate levels. The flame suddenly blazes violently and bursts out into the air in front of our hero. As his eyes widen in shock, the flames speak in a strange voice as it states to have finally come. It rises and rises as our hero glares in anticipation. A giant ball accumulates in front of him as it viciously smiles and elaborates that the time has finally come when his rage has reached him. The blue flame pays his respects to Raph, the second lord of the demon realm, and expresses that he will help Leon's revenge dreams come true. However, Leon is surprised and taken aback as he questions this claim, and a message window pops up telling him that he has unlocked 2 new traits. The rage trait is being activated, but the second one remains unidentified. The blue flame continues to rage and blaze as it presents its offer to our hero, but it is taken aback in shock and stops midway to address the concern. The ball of blue flame questions why there is a child standing before him. Leon steps away to prepare to engage in battle against the mysterious ball of fire that has suddenly appeared in front of him, and he asks what it is. But the ball of fire seems to be just as confused, and it expresses the same concern, elaborating that the rage that reached him was not an emotion that a kid like Leon can feel. Upon a second glance, the ball of blue fire's eyes widen as the realization dawns upon him, and it exclaims that it was definitely the child standing before him. The child has been hiding a deep and dark rage within him. Leon hardens his facial expressions and is skeptical of the ball of fire as it asks him to give away his body and soul to him, and then he will help him get the revenge that he desires. He wonders if the ball of fire is here because of his violent rage against Dareth Robert before he was reborn. But if it is, he expresses that the ball of fire is way too late. Following the skeptical nature and suspicion of the ball of fire, Leon denies his offer and states that he will get his revenge on his own. This confuses the ball, who anticipated an answer. It floats around Leon's body as Leon tells him that he will exact revenge on Dareth himself, thinking that he can't get the help of another in such a matter. But the ball of fire does not seem to buy this claim as it expresses that Leon seems to be misunderstanding something. Smiling widely, the ball rises up once again and states that he is not here to negotiate. The huge ball of fire blazes again, and it viciously glares at our hero to alert him that he has already made his decision. Although the flames catch onto Leon's body, he immediately notices something. The flames are cold. Realizing this could only mean one thing, Leon steps back nervously. The ball of flame flares and rushes forward as it yells that now all Leon needs to do is give him his body. Leon steps away from the threat as the blue ball of fire approaches him. The fire approaches nearer and nearer. There does not seem to be anything that our hero can do, and the flames finally reach Leon's body as a burst of light illuminates the room. Following the strange interaction, he does not seem to be feeling too well as he grabs hold of his chest firmly. His eyes widened in shock, and he expresses that he feels as if his mind is going to freeze over. He wonders if it is the attribute of cold that is causing this strange and uncomfortable feeling. A mysterious and vicious avatar looms over Leon as its heavy voice instigates him to think of the person to bring up the rage, and he will kill him, even if it is a god. Shivering and shaking, Leon rubs his hands over his arms, curling up into a ball as he expresses that he is able to endure the attack somewhat thanks to his water attribute tolerance ability. But he realizes that this attack is not just cold. Adding on, he elaborates that the mysterious entity is consistently stimulating his rage. Awful and torturous moments from his past life constantly replay in his head as he is reminded of the pain he has endured and the days he has spent in torment. The mysterious man hovers near to our hero's ear as he exclaims that he will break the man's skull and eat up on his flesh. And so, Leon resists giving up his body and lets the man take over. Recalling the joyful moments he has spent with the maids and his mother Sylvia, he worries about what will happen to them if he gives up his body to this strange entity that has appeared so suddenly. He grits his teeth in frustration, determined to not let go so easily, and he exclaims that he cannot let him have his body no matter what happened. The blue ball of fire has once again appeared before our hero as it hovers over him and continues to persuade him by saying that it would have been easier for him to give in to his rage and accept the entity, but he is just holding on for no reason at all. He expresses that he was going to minimize the damage since he was going to use his body, but our hero leaves him no choice. It expresses that it will just swallow Leon whole without waiting any further, and it seems like the situation is worsening. It's apparent by the look on Leon's face as he attempts to catch his breath, and he expresses that it feels like his body is going to break into pieces. Holding on to dear life, our hero expresses regret, realizing that he is almost at his limit, and he'll end up dying at this rate if he does nothing at all to survive. But just then, something clicks in Leon's head as his eyes widen and the realization dawns upon him. He grips his hands together and grits his teeth to give it his all, elaborating that if he could endure the cold due to his water tolerance attribute, then he might be able to reduce the pain in his body and mind through the ring of fire. Noticing it to be the only option he has left to survive, our hero musters up all his strength to counter the cold, and his move works as the ring of fire slowly pushes away the cold from Leon, surprising the ball of blue fire. He groans in frustration, seeing a child push away and counter his attack. He expresses that, even if it hasn't been long since he has awakened, a feat like this is impossible. His annoyance is further elevated at the fact that the foe is just a human child. He glares at the ball of fire and warns that he will get revenge on his own without needing to let a ghost use his body. The blue ball of fire is offended by this statement as it rages and blazes violently at our hero. He questions how dare the human child call one of the great demon lords a ghost. Playfully teasing the entity, Leon asks why he hasn't been able to kill him if he is a lord of the demon realm. He continues to tease and taunt the lord as he states that the lord of the demon realm isn't anything special, and he suggests that he just disappears. Infuriated at this insulting interaction, the ball of fire starts growling at Leon. Observing and recalling the demon lord's words, Leon realizes that he is said to have just awakened, which could possibly mean that the ball of a demon lord has yet to restore his full strength. Leon's deepening thoughts over the strange lord of the demon realm are broken off by a message from the system window that notifies him of special abilities that have been unlocked. Gazing upon the message window in curiosity, he finds his stats to be shown in a number format. At this realization, the lord of the demon realm freaks out, yelling that it is his authority, and he questions why the little boy has it. Our hero asks if the blue ball of fire has anything to do with the sudden change in the format of the message window, and although the ball frowns at first, it affirms that he has made the system, and he annoyingly questions why it is with him. Feeding into his curiosity, Leon once again asks what kind of system it is, but the demon lord has no interest in revealing anything to him. But he finds himself immediately taken aback and dazed when Leon answers his own question to express that it might be for quicker progress. The blue ball of fire blazes in rage and confusion as he wonders how the little boy knows. Leon, on the other hand, blatantly glares at the spirit in front of him, concluding that he can't even hide his emotions at all. Contemplating over the mysterious workings of the system, our hero mentions that he too had thought it to be strange that his ring of fire ability was more effective than in his past life, but now he realizes that it was because of the system. Filled with rage and frustration, the spirit of the demon lord flares violently as he demands that the little boy gives up his authority and body to him. But just as he continues to press on our hero, he sees a powerful energy blow coming towards him, and he immediately dodges as the attack flows right through his hollow spiritual form. Enraged even more, he asks what the little boy is doing, and Leon gleefully expresses that he has hit him with mana, just in case. Observing the outcome of the attack, he notices that the spirit of the demon lord does not have a physical body, which would mean that aura won't work on him either. And considering the fact that no one else has come rushing in after the ruckus they have caused, It's apparent that he's probably the only one who can see or hear this spirit. Having enough of the little boy taunting and playing with him, the blue ball of fire is fed up and yells at Leon before flowing directly at his wrists. Leon's eyes widen as he flinches at the sudden hostile movement, but he is taken aback again when the blue ball of fire has now turned into a bracelet with ice crystals for beads, and even in the form of a mirror bracelet. The Lord of the Demon Realm does not shy away from shit-talking. He exclaims that it hasn't been long since his seal has been undone, but his powers will return soon and then no one will be able to stop him. He warns that he will stick with Leon till the day he dies. Under the morning sun's bright rays, Helen and Sylvia wait anxiously in the grand hall of the annex. Sylvia is visibly concerned for her son, while Helen tries to reassure her, offering comforting words about Leon's capabilities. Finally, Leon descends the stairs from his room, announcing his readiness. Sylvia and Helen turn their attention to him as he makes his way down. With a smile, Leon declares that he's off to the training hall. As he leaves, Helen can't help but express her worries, urging him not to overexert himself. Leon acknowledges her concern and heads out for his first day at the training hall. Meanwhile, the training grounds buzz with activity, welcoming aspiring martial artists from various backgrounds. Leon is among them, surprised by the sheer number of participants. He notes that it's not only members of the Zekart family but also students recommended by vassal families and from outside the clan. Amidst the crowd, Leon overhears whispers and laughter directed at him. Turning to investigate, he sees students mocking him, commenting on his appearance and the floral bracelet he wears. This insults the spirit of the blue ball of fire, which flares up in response. Unfazed, Leon approaches the mocking students, warning them sternly to stop their disrespectful behavior or face severe consequences. He challenges them to say their insults to his face instead of hiding behind whispers. This bold confrontation surprises and unsettles the mocking students, who try to justify their actions by pointing out Leon's lower status and lack of direct lineage within the clan. However, Leon calmly reminds them that they too are from indirect bloodlines and thus have no right to question his actions. In a moment of frustration, one of the students attempts to grab Leon by the neck, escalating the confrontation further. As he cocks back his fist to attack, Leon also prepares to fight back. His eyes start to glow red and he glares at the opponents before him. In the next instance, a voice yells out to stop the fight and the kid stands down, immediately concerned about the consequences. Another kid walks up to them saying that the training is starting soon, and points out that this place has outsiders visiting too. He questions if the students plan on shaming the Zeegard name. He is introduced to be from the direct bloodline. Buren Zeichart Buren faces off against our hero in an intense stare-down as the two students stand beside him in shame and apologize to the boy of the direct lineage. The arrogant boy crosses his arms to mention that our hero is still not aware of his place. He exclaims that Leon is nothing more than dust, telling him to stay low if he doesn't want to get kicked out of the annex. Following the confrontation, Buren recalls the time at the judgment ceremony, pissed that Leon getting the patriarch's attention was just pure luck, and he just used the situation to his advantage. Buren scoffs and frowns, concluding that a loser like Leon will definitely fail the training. Our hero observes as Buren walks away, asking him to leave if he is not going to behave, also mentioning that he is not going to pass the training anyway. But before Buren can leave, Leon points out that he has heard enough of his nonsense. This startles him as his eyes widen and question at the unexpected statement. Buren immediately turns his head at the disrespectful child and our hero continues. He insults Buren for his arrogance, claiming that the only thing going for him is the fact that he's from the direct bloodline. Aside from that, Leon warns him that he has no right or authority to talk down to him when he's not even a trainee. He then taunts him even further by saying that he might actually be able to do something if he goes, and complains to his father like a brat. This enrages Buren as he grits his teeth in frustration, and his eyes sharpen at the bastard who has spewed such nonsense. But before he can do anything, a door bursts open beside the two growling beasts, ready to kill each other. Out comes the red-haired elf, who stares in amazement at the two kids already fighting even before the training has begun. Leon immediately recognizes the man to be the Zygarde family's brilliant sword lemur. He recalls that Lemur had retired because his energy core had been destroyed. He glances upon the sudden appearance of the man, expressing that he did not expect him to be here. Meanwhile, Lemur joyfully asks the kids to hold off the fight until at least the entrance ceremony ends. And, obeying the brilliant sword, Burin walks away quietly as he scoffs. Moving forward, the entrance ceremony has started as all the students stand in line in front of a stage where Lemur welcomes them all and joyfully introduces himself to be the head instructor who will be in charge of their training. Pointing out the number of candidates to be 160, he expresses that it's way too many, and so he says that he will cut down the numbers with a series of tests. In fact, he clarifies that the number will be cut down to a quarter. This sparks confusion and astonishment among the crowd of students as they question this absurd claim, but Lemur elaborates that he prefers to only keep a small number of elites and not bother with the riffraff. Lemur casually sits and rocks on his chair upon the stage, as he expresses that his word is considered law on the training grounds. If anyone has a problem with what he has to say, they can take it up with the patriarch. Following this warning, he asks to begin the tests right away. He points out at the students, telling them to immediately start running. This confuses the students as they at first question this absurd test, but later they rush away as they compete against each other diligently. Lemur cheers them on as he shouts that the basics of martial arts are physical strength and mental power, encouraging them to run as fast as they can. Sprinting before the other students, the spirit of the blue ball of fire appears in front of Leon to express his concern. It wonders why Leon is all the way in the back when he should be aiming for the front, but Leon elaborates that it's not a competition and he does not need to get past the other guys. Leon knows that Lemur is observing, expressing that he looks into others' potential and temperament, and he won't be judging based on just what the eye can see. Sweat trickles down his face. He huffs desperately, attempting to catch his breath, and he assesses that the winner in this test is the one who endures until the end. Concluding his assessment, he is determined that he will make it until the end, no matter what. Commenting on the test, the instructors announce that Sir Byrne and Lady Lunan can be seen sprinting at the front. They discuss that everyone is fast, but it is especially so in the case of these two. Another instructor also adds that the speed they are running at isn't their best, so he's sure that they can run for hours on end. The race continues in full spirit as the students rush forward on the track. Observing the students is Lemur, the brilliant sword. He singles out Leon, questioning how he is still running. He elaborates that Leon had exhausted his stamina long ago, and he's way past the boundary of determination. Lemur concludes that Leon shouldn't have any stamina left in him to squeeze out. He can tell that our boy has the same kind of mentality as those who have been trained to survive until the brink of death, which is quite fascinating for a young child observing this amazing talent. Lemur deems the young master to be quite interesting. Seeing Leon continue running and keeping up with him and raids Burin, he scoffs and questions just how Leon is still able to keep running. When he was told that the boy was too weak to train, he recalls the information provided by his messenger that the Saint of Rags assessed Leon with the curse of the bitter cold. Leon has a low chance of surviving childhood, let alone learning martial arts. And even at first glance, it's not a secret that Leon looks fragile, annoyed at things not going according to plan and everyone proving him wrong. Burin grits his teeth in frustration before yelling out the move, Aura Utilization. A burst of energy follows right after, with beams of light crackling around his body. In his childish rage, Burin has started using his aura in the race just to show off that he's much better than everyone else, and he rushes forward with electric beams crackling and sparking around him, leaving behind Lunan and Leon, who follow him. Witnessing the sudden change in speed and agility, Leon is quite taken aback. He observes that although Burin speaks like a noble, he is just a kid in comparison. He thinks that Lady Lunan might actually be much more mentally mature than the brat who rushed ahead, keeping his focus. He then concludes that this is just a test and not a competition, so there's no need to break his pace just because his opponent wants to show off. The sun shines down once again as the hot beams scorch the ground, and all the other students who withdrew from the test due to exhaustion fall to the ground as they catch their breaths. The two kids that called Leon names and bad-mouthed him observe and question how the boy is still able to keep running. Another student adds that she had heard of Leon being weak because he is ill, but this result contradicts everything. Our brave young master keeps on going while the students wonder how he does not get tired. The pain intensifies and grows, but Leon holds his own to survive. His eyes begin to close slowly as his consciousness slips, and he acknowledges that he cannot breathe properly. The intense situation now lessens when, before more damage can be done, the brilliant sword of the psych art calls for the test to be over, and all the students participating in the test fall like flies to catch their breath and take some rest on the ground. Leon also joins the students to catch his breath as he sweats profusely while Buren glares at him with a look of frustration, calling him a determined bastard in annoyance while catching his breath and breathing heavily. He acknowledges that he almost died and concludes that this life isn't going to be easy either. Lunan looks over and observes our hero while he catches his breath before the spirit of the demon lord appears once again to throw a tantrum. He yells and puffs up in rage and frustration, calling him a monstrous bastard and questions how he managed to pull it off. Answering the question, Leon reminds him that this is why he asked him to stop. Acknowledging the outcome of the limit testing training, he notices that the ring of fire has also grown, and thanks to the status window, his physical capacity has improved too. He aspires that if he continues to train like this, he can achieve greater feats. Just then, his attention is diverted and he looks up to find a huge status window in front of him that notifies him of fulfilling the conditions, resulting in increased experience points and physical capabilities. Leon glares in astonishment at the status window with his mouth open while the spirit of the demon lord exclaims and questions why he is getting extra experience points for putting up with his rage. He yells out and states it to be absurd. The students once again stand before the stage as Lemmer, the brilliant sword, commends everyone for doing their best, and he moves on to what he said before the test started. Hearing this, the looks on the students' faces show despair and nervousness as they await their inevitable failure of passing. But to their surprise, Lemmer playfully exclaims that he was just lying about cutting down the numbers to a quarter. He paces across the stage as he addresses the students and reminds them of running with all they had. He points out that none out of all the 160 of them kept it up until the very end except for one. He also mentions students who gave up and started using aura. This alerts Buren, who is guilty of doing so, and he fears suspension over this act. But as he crouches down in front of Leon, he adds that he does not care how they do it, as they are the ones taking the test after all. And he makes an okay sign up in front of Leon as he continues to tell them that if the students do as he says, they won't fail the test, but he also mentions that it won't be easy either. Moving on, he now faces the students once again and addresses them to tell that they are now provisional trainees but will become official trainees once they pass the test they will take in the next 6 months. He joyfully mentions that he is going to pick the top trainees, although he won't be the one to rank them. Calling off the trainees, Lemmer lets them go and guides them to the top-quality dormitories provided by the Zygarde family, mentioning that there is a training center next to it too. Tree leaves flutter, and the sun shines through the forest. We are now brought to the forest near the training hall as Lemmer walks up to a mysterious figure in royal attire that awaits his arrival. Lemmer, the brilliant sword, winks and addresses the person in front of him as he states that someone has taken up his napping spot. He reveals the person to be the Patriarch, Glenn. The Patriarch acknowledges Lemmer's arrival and immediately asks him what had happened. Lemmer slowly walks up to him and asks the Patriarch why he is asking him when he himself was here the entire time to witness the whole thing. But continuing with his statement, Lemmer explains that the patriarch knows he has great eyes and can see the future, and children elaborating. He tells that Buren and Lunan are greatly talented, as they already knew, and the other children also have a lot of potential to become great pillars of the family, but he adds that he cannot see anything in Leon. The patriarch proceeds to acknowledge this information, while Lemur adds that he was sure Leon was out of stamina, which he questions and asks how he was able to keep on running. He also tells the patriarch that it is the first time after him that he has not been able to see anything in someone, and he expresses in joy that his life has been very boring ever since his energy core had been ruined. But this is going to be interesting. But he also mentions that he believes there is going to be someone this year to whom he can leave his future, but the patriarch disagrees and states it to be just a coincidence. He exclaims that the child cannot become a martial artist. Seeing the patriarch off, Lemmer acknowledges this statement and smiles before he exclaims that the patriarch knows very well that it's not just a coincidence. Sighing and finally having the rest he needed, our hero sets off to the training center. Now that the test is all over with, two students glare and observe him as he steps away, and the blue ball of fire is amazed that Leon does not seem to stop training. The group of students that stand behind Leon as he walks away glare viciously at him with murderous intent, and as the sun sets over the training grounds, they exclaim it to be impossible. Two students rally on about how there's no way Leon held on for that long when they had heard that he was sick. They go on while the yellow-haired man from the indirect lineage, Crane Zickhart, gleefully assesses the situation. Crane addresses the situation and adds that he had heard Leon had some kind of miracle medicine, elaborating that the Saint of Rags gave him one long ago. This follows up with a shocking response from the two trainees who question the saint giving him this kind of boost. They scream out to conclude that this means Leon had been dependent on the medicine to run that long, and he had the gall to show off. Concluding their assessment, Crane suggests that they go and teach the arrogant bastard a lesson for using cheats against them in the training. Transitioning right into the act of words, our hero is seen being slammed into a tree as he groans in pain. He slides down to the ground under the pale moonlight and asks why the group of students is doing this to him. But Crane scoffs and questions this statement from Leonardo. The other two students yell out and point at Leon as they elaborate that he got his direct lineage title taken away, but he is all arrogant because of some miracle medicine. They claim that if he did not have the miracle medicine given to him by the Saint of Rags, he could not have run that much today. At the training, they go on to question, how dare he use such dirty tricks? But Leon assesses the rage and anger the students are feeling as he concludes that they are mad over something stupid. Proceeding with the confrontation, they start to prepare and stretch to launch an attack as they ask the young assassin not to be scared because they are just here to talk. Crane leads the group as they stand before Leon and threaten him. He asks him to rest assured as this kind of thing happens often before he rushes forward at the young assassin, exclaiming that the instructor asks them to talk more to each other. Leon slowly stands up while the spirit of the Lord of the Demon Realm questions if he is just going to stand there listening to them talk to him like that. He also mentions that he is supposed to be his vessel, but he expresses that it's not that big of a deal. However, in a shocking turn of events, Crane is struck away with a punch to the face as the vicious glare now transfers over to the brave warrior, Leon. A loud gasp follows right after as the two students are shaken up from the unexpected outcome. And this expression is also shared by the spirit of the Demon Lord, who had once closed his eyes to not see the unfortunate circumstance that might befall his vessel. Crane is blown away and falls to the ground before the two students, who turn their heads in shock and take a glance at their fallen leader, who got defeated with just one punch. While Leon expresses the same threatening tone, he questions their claim to talk, and he viciously glares once again to ask them to talk if they wanted to so badly. The two students rush forward, giving it their best, and attempt to hurt the talented trainee, but their attempts are futile because they are no match for the once best assassin in the world. Seeing the group fall to their knees, another student calls upon them to question what they are doing. He then takes up the mantle to take on the bastard as he rushes forward to strike a punch while questioning the other's ability to defeat Leon. But before he can finish his sentence, his face meets with the fist of our hero as he falls to the ground as well. Leon continues to effortlessly defeat all the opponents that come charging at him, while the spirit of the demon lord watches in awe and remarks that his vessel is doing exceptionally well, calling the scene magnificent. The beaten-up students now beg for mercy as they fall to the ground and give up their hostile behavior toward the one they called a bastard. In a threatening act of violence, Leon steps on Crane's hand as his wails echo throughout the forest trees, and he states to ask one more thing of him before he lets him go. Of course, Crane obediently wills to answer, falling under the agonizing pain as his voice stutters. When he speaks, Leon questions who was the person that made them do this, and he immediately mentions if it was Burren. Crane snaps and is alerted upon hearing his name, but he mumbles that they did this without the young master knowing, and he is not related to this at all. Our hero seems to be confused, and he expresses that such an answer is unexpected when he thought Burren hated him, but he concludes that maybe the guy is not too far gone. Following the confrontation, he questions Crane if he is safe to assume that he would not go on telling others about their conversation. Once again, Crane immediately mutters to agree to the terms. However, just then, the bully is grabbed by his hair and brought closer to Leon, where he glares viciously into his eyes to tell him that he better avoid him if he does not want to have another conversation with him. Filled with fear and horror, Crane immediately mutters that he will not even step on the young master's shadow. Leon lets him go, asking him to go away if he understands. The group rushes off away from the threatening young master, but there is a mysterious man hiding among the shadows that watches over the situation. The man is revealed to be Lemur, who smiles at the outcome of the quarrel as he deems it interesting to watch, and he expresses that it was like seeing the patriarch when he was young. Then he concludes that Leon seems to be talented in martial arts too, making him a true Zygarde. Lemur's excitement reaches the skies as he mentions an unknown talent hidden among the most talented children, and he expresses that he is getting even more interested in our hero by the day. Not gonna lie, the dude is starting to creep me out. Bringing us back to the training halls, we see the former assassin gazing upon the message window as it notifies him of Raphael being satisfied with the conditions being fulfilled and his agility being increased by 1. The spirit of the demon lord expresses rage and anger as it acknowledges the extra bonus points for something so pointless. He questions the increase in ability, but Leon asks why he doesn't know when he's the one who made the system. But the spirit grits its teeth in frustration as it confronts him and answers to tell that it's obvious that he does not know, especially when it has never been taken away from him before. He elaborates that Leon is stealing his power that remains in his original form. Now, enlightened of such information, Leon acknowledges this fact in glee. This annoys the spirit as it flares up in anger and exclaims that the little bastard does not even show any gratitude. The young master ignores the spirit and sits across his desk with the cup in his hand while the spirit scoffs in frustration, and it states that it has an offer to make, which sparks the curiosity of Leon, who asks about the offer. The spirit asks our hero to bet on something with his rage, and our hero sets experience points on the line. If he loses, our hero receives his rage, but if he wins, he receives all his experience points. Sipping on his drink, Leon carefully gazes upon the message window as it displays the bet placed by the spirit of Wrath. The condition is to pass as a top trainee for the training test, and the rewards and punishments follow. Leon questions if the bet has been placed upon the test that Lemur has mentioned, and Wrath confirms, adding that he said he will choose only the top trainees. Leon's gaze falls upon a card labeled Trait Option, and upon questioning, Wrath tells him that he'll be given one of his traits, but the level will be decreased since he is inferior. Curious to know, another question is shot up upon what is the rage, and Wrath answers to tell that he will take on the emotion of rage that he possesses. Smiling widely, Wrath elaborates that what he will get is next to nothing, but with enough of it, he won't be able to control himself and will go insane. Hearing such a statement, our hero realizes this is what Wrath is going for, and as he sips his tea, He adds that considering how he usually behaves, it does not seem like Wrath is lying, and he has answered every question he has been asked. Honestly, contemplating over the rewards of the bet, he remarks that it is not too bad elaborating it to be a poisoned apple that he has to eat, but he considers it nevertheless, given that it will be difficult to get the top place if he was a normal ill child, but he remembers that he has reincarnated. Reaching forth his hand, Leon accepts Wrath's bet, making him smile widely as he remarks his choice to be wise. Blue flames flare around Leon's hand as the message window notifies that he has accepted Wrath's bet. He believes that if he utilizes his past life, he won't lose. As the sun rises, the air fills with the sounds of heavy breathing and panting. Students sprawled on the ground, sweating and struggling to catch their breath. They lament the strain on their legs and express their exhaustion from the morning's intense running. Transitioning to the scene, the instructor calls on the students to stop complaining and rise, emphasizing the importance of maintaining their swordsmanship skills. Meanwhile, Wrath appears beside Leon once more, questioning why he isn't joining the group practicing swordsmanship. Leon dismisses the idea, stating that focusing on basics is more crucial than honing sword skills at the moment. He emphasizes the significance of fundamental training for growth and discipline, reminding himself not to rush. Following his own advice, Leon commits to a plank exercise, sweat dripping from his brow. Unbeknownst to him, Lunan Sleon from the Vassal family observes him from the shadows, noting his rapid improvement despite his illness, and quietly approaches him. As Lunan approaches, Leon curiously questions her presence, and they share a tense silence, each seemingly unable to break the ice. Lunan, intrigued by Leon's rapid growth, suddenly feels a chill and freezes momentarily. She then sits beside him and mimics his weightlifting exercises. Perplexed by her behavior, Leon watches as Lunan continues to copy him, lifting various weights. Lunan attributes her newfound strength to a pleasant scent she detected from Leon, claiming it made her feel lighter and stronger. Despite Leon's inquiry, Lunan denies having anything to share, prompting him to walk away. However, Lunan follows, determined to uncover the source of her unusual reaction to Leon's scent. Barun enters the room with the other students as they observe Lunan following around Leon. There is no expression whatsoever on his face while the other students scoff and question why such a girl is following around a guy like him. He then grabs hold of a wooden stick as he claims that the bastard is just wasting his time and that kind of repetitive training has no point, calling upon his friends. He walks away as he asks them to ignore the bastard from the indirect lineage, and the results of the test will speak for themselves. While Leon is training, an unknown student walks up to him and calls his name. He introduces himself as Dorian and asks if he can train next to him and Lunan. The outsider contestant Dorian expresses that he wants to learn the correct procedure, but Leon tells him that he really does not care. Shuffling around his bag, Dorian thanks Leon for letting him train next to him. As a token of appreciation, he hands him a cookie to try, but refusing to have the cookie, he proceeds to offer it to Lunan, who sits beside him. However, he is taken aback in nervousness when he sees her eyes sparkle in awe at the mysterious food item that lays before her. Handing over the cookie to Lunan, he confusingly expresses her to be another unique one. In the party, leaves flutter away into the sky, signifying the time that passes by in the blink of an eye, and our hero trains diligently, running on tracks, lifting weights, and making sure he does everything to be in the best shape possible. Others are also shown to be working hard and doing their best to prepare for the test. Leon now once again runs on the tracks as he pants and huffs for air. He narrates that it's been 6 months since they began training, adding that he ran every day until he was ready to die. Moving on, he tells us that after all that, finally, the morning of the test day has come, and families of the participants are seen walking into the arena as they anticipate their children's success. An announcer greets everyone gathered in the arena as his voice echoes through the large area, and he elaborates that the Guardians are all here to watch the event unfold. He also alerts them to follow his instructions carefully. As Leon stands idly, Wrath appears before him to remind him of the bet that he had made all those months ago. Diverted towards Dorian, He then notices him laying down on the ground and he asks what he is doing. Dorian has a look of despair on his face as he explains that he is nervous because of the test that is today, and he had not slept all night. Seeing him fall into despair and agitation, our hero steps forward to address the situation and comfort him when Lunan approaches him and offers him a cookie to try, which he refuses. Just then, he exchanges looks with Barun, who passes by him, and he annoyingly acknowledges the odd people that surround him among the crowd. Sylvia excitedly calls for Helen to look at her young master as she exclaims in awe at the strong and confident warrior, and acknowledging that he has even made friends makes her feel proud of him too. Listening to Helen's strong words, Sylvia smiles in awe of her child when suddenly this heartfelt moment is disturbed by the sudden call for the patriarch's entrance. Slowly stepping into the arena, the bright red attire and shiny blonde hair make a statement which intimidates the observing audience as they question his sudden appearance. Glenn Zygarde prepares to sit on his throne as the attendees bow down to him, and the audience expresses that he has never come to watch the test unfold before the brilliant sword of the Zygarde family. Lemmer also expresses concern as he asks about the patriarch's sudden appearance. Wasting no time, the elf then announces that, since the patriarch is already here, they will now quickly begin with the test, and he will now announce the details of this test. A green leaf falls to the ground, following the green aura that bursts out and falls upon the students that stand before Lemur. The students are startled and taken aback as their eyes open wide at the sudden wave of strong aura that bursts right at them. Leon expresses this concern too, and Lemmer glares at the students with a menacing look while his green aura rushes forward. He elaborates that the students must make it through his aura. That is the test that they have to pass. Continuing with the test, Lemmer elaborates that aura is inherent to a martial artist, and this test will judge the students' worth as martial artists. But before the students can begin the test, a commotion sparks up among the crowd of family, and a man stands up to question why this is a test when the students have just started learning aura. The small commotion turns into a situation when the man yells out that this is unfair because some of the students are yet to even learn aura. He exclaims that the head instructor had also been spotted sleeping during training too. Lemmer sighs at the unfortunate situation and explains it to the concerned families. The test is not just a manifestation of aura, but the real aura burst is the level of the soul that a martial artist achieves. He adds that this proves that a martial artist can manifest energy without aura, but the man that sparked the conversation does not seem to buy his explanation and raises concern once again. Suddenly, the patriarch's voice remarks that the brilliant sword is not wrong. Adhering to all the concerns, Lemmer now asks if all questions have been answered before exclaiming for the test to begin. He then calls forth Lunan Slayon, who slowly steps forward among the students to the head instructor, and now that she stands before him, he explains that the aura burst that he will test her with is of a level that she can endure if she has trained her hardest, and she will pass if she gets through his barrier to touch him. Once all the details have been made clear, the test now begins, and Lemmer smiles before a straw-green aura rushes forth at Lunan, who blocks the wave of energy with her arms. The brilliant sword of the Zygarde family mentions that it will count as a fail if she uses her own aura, and calls her to awaken the mental power she has trained. But the aura is strong and the wave of energy does not seem to stop. Lunan struggles, and slowly but surely she manages to take a step forward with her hand reaching out at the head instructor that stands before her. And before we know it, Lunan's hand grabs hold of Lemur's hand, marking the end of the test. He grabs Lunan close to him as she slumps over him with exhaustion and remarks her. Passing the test is easy. Moving on with the next participant, Lemmer calls forth Dorian, and hearing his name from the instructor's mouth, he is perplexed and shaken up with fear. Nevertheless, he nervously steps forward, passing by the exhausted Lunan, who slumps over, still trying to catch her breath. Leaning over the slouched trainee, Lemmer asks him to do just exactly as Lunan has done. Nothing stops the brilliant sword from testing the trainees to their absolute limit, and without a warning, his aura bursts out and flares violently while he remarks that if Dorian cannot endure, he will fail. Trying his best, he attempts to endure and plow through the strong burst of energy, but he struggles heavily and falls to the ground. This test is being observed by our hero, who notices that the head instructor's aura burst intensity differs from child to child. He elaborates that the instructor is controlling his intensity based on the child's level and training progress, which makes him now firmly believe that the brilliant sword of the Zygarde family really has been observing each and every student. As Leon assesses Lemur's teaching skills, his attention now averts to him, congratulating the fearful Dorian, who trembles but has finally grabbed hold of him. While he is on the ground, time flows like a river downstream, and one by one the students are called upon by the head instructor for their test. Now comes Barun Zygarde's turn, who exclaims at his call and enthusiastically steps forth to face the test. Lemur then walks up to the student and mentions that he will begin right away. A huge wave of green energy follows this elaboration as Lemur hardens his facial expressions and glares down at the capable student that stands before him. Seeing the student fall to his knees, Lemur now begins to state that his talent is special, more so than anyone, and there are only a few that are comparable to him. Struggling to get through the energy wave, he grits his teeth in frustration. He cannot afford to fail this test here. This boost of adrenaline, backed up by fear and anxiety, pushes the student to rush forward in desperation, and finally he grabs hold of Lemur's leg, being called upon to pass the test. Moving forward with the test, he now lastly calls upon our hero, Leon Zygarde, to step forward, and he obediently comes forth from among the students. Now standing before the head instructor, Leon dramatically makes his way to the final test to become a martial artist, and as the suspense builds up, Lemur asks if the young trainee is ready, which is responded by a confident nod. Then, following the exchange of words, Lemur remarks that he will begin. A roaring wave of energy now rushes forward through the battle arena at Leon, who stands readily in the face of the strongest aura burst that Lemur has let out the whole day. The strangely violent and roaring burst of aura surprises not only Sylvia, who jumps up in concern for her beloved son, but the patriarch too, whose eyes widen as he questions the odd display of power that the student is now facing. Nervous to face the strongest aura burst, Leon asks the head instructor if this really is his test, and Lemur responds by elaborating that the talent he had foreseen in the capable student was far above what he saw in Baran and Lunan, and so he exclaims for the student to try and endure the aura bursts. Blocking the roaring wave of energy, our hero falls into contemplation. He remarks that his potential does not lie in his body, but inside his soul that once suffered a terrible end as an assassin. And while he acknowledges this fact, the wave of energy starts to cut through our hero's feet. As he takes a step forward, the atmosphere starts to change and the head instructor's eyes widen at the student enduring the most powerful aura bursts. The patriarch's glare locks onto his grandson too, as the brilliant sword startles at the sight of Leon's unbelievable talent, who continues to step closer and closer to his body. And before you know it, Leon Zygarde has pressed his palm against the head instructor's chest, who exclaims in denial that this really has happened. This amazing talent has the crowd of families in shock too, as their gasps sound and echo throughout the arena. Lemur and the patriarch widen their eyes in shock and they are taken by surprise, but the brave young warrior smiles without a hint of exhaustion as he questions if the test is now over. Lemur nervously walks up to the talented student and the voices of the messenger echo through the arena as he questions how the ill child who hasn't even learned aura managed to make it through such a difficult test. Lemur blatantly stands before the student and now asks what he really is. Our hero, Leon Zygarde, introduces himself once again, mentioning that the head has been observing him for the last 6 months. Lemur's contemplation is suddenly broken down when he realizes his position and nervously announces to apologize for being a little distracted, marking the end of the test. Just as he proceeds to remark, the top trainee for this test burns. Anxiety spikes up as he nervously anticipates the announcement. The crowd was holding its breath in suspense of the results, But their anticipation is met with disappointment and shock when Lemmer announces the top trainee of the 5th training hall to be none other than our young hero, Leon Zeikart. The announcement sparks joy and tears fall down Sylvia's eyes as she exclaims and jumps up in her seat. Helen shares the same sentiment as she adds in the excitement, pointing out that the young master has done it again. A commotion rises from among the crowd. Since family representatives do not seem to be happy with the decision, they question Leon's position as the top trainee. Baran is not having it either, and he points his finger at Leon to elaborate that they are the martial artists of the Zeikart family, and that they should duel to choose the top trainee rather than test for one. Lemmer assesses Buran's consistent emphasis on the unfair selection, and he comments that the boy is desperate to stand at the top. That startles the young master, who takes a step back to deny the claim. However, stating that the test is already over, he asks the patriarch for help, and after taking a brief moment to think, Glenn Zeikart responds by calling out for his grandson. He remarks that the people do not seem to accept him as the top trainee despite the results, and so he asks if the current top trainee is willing to have a duel with the young master for the top spot. The response from Leon is met with a collectively loud and sound gasp of shock as he openly denies the offer. He elaborates that the test is already over with the results that speak for themselves, and he is not interested in fighting in a duel when there is no reward at the end. Finding no other way to prove the new talent's capabilities, the patriarch then suggests that he fights in a duel over the position of the top trainee, and if he wins, he will be rewarded with a bronze plaque. Leon is immediately alerted upon hearing that condition, and reminds himself that the bronze, silver, and gold plaque rewards are given to those who have accomplished something special in the family. He explains that these plaques can be used to claim certain valuable rewards in the future, so naturally he accepts the offer. While remarking that maybe Buran really wants the top spot, the patriarch approves this decision and states that they will begin right away. Leon now stands before his opponent, who has a look of desperation on his face as the patriarch adds that this duel will be the real decider of who is deserving of the top trainee title. He explains the details. There will be only one round and the opponents are only allowed to use their bodies. The head instructor now affirms the duel and swings his hand, marking the beginning of the fight. Baran immediately rushes forward at his opponent, his arm reaching back to muster up a powerful punch. The fist flies next to Leon's face as his eyes widen at the sudden attack. This is followed up by an immediate kick to the face that is blocked by Leon as he hardens his facial expressions in light of the heated battle that unfolds in the arena. Buran now charges up his fist as blue energy spirals around his body. He calls it the righteous tiger fist that his father has taught him personally. Since this move is a martial arts fist technique, the boy exclaims that he's not cheating in any capacity. The fight unfolds as the two students fight to prove themselves, and the other students cheer upon Buran's talented capabilities. Amidst the fight, Buran gives it his all. He needs this victory more than anything, knowing that his father is watching over him. The scared Buran, enraged, pushes himself even further in order to prove his worth. A barrage of punches face our hero as Buran tells himself that he cannot at any cost let someone like Leon keep him from falling behind and disappointing his father. Leon now expresses that he can clearly see his opponent, his fists, his flow of attack, and where they are aimed. Buran notices his opponent lagging behind in thought and makes his move as he yells and rushes forward quickly, questioning if the weakling has finally decided to give up. Leaping in mid-air, he prepares to strike Leon with a powerful punch, but our hero does not give up this easily. He also cocks back his fist to charge up a counterattack and glares fiercely at his opponent. Their fists meet, and a spark of energy is let out. Our hero wins this clash as his fist slips away, aiming directly for Buran's chest. Buran is taken aback when his attack is pushed back by Leon's strong punch. Golden lightning sparks around Leon's body as he moves forward with a vicious gaze and charges up another powerful punch before striking Buran in the gut. Finally, the boy is blasted away upon impact as he groans in pain, and the crowd lets out yet another resounding gasp. Unable to believe that young Master Burn was defeated once again, Burn's father jumps up from his seat and grits his teeth in agitation as a man yells out that this is impossible. The patriarch, too, is taken by surprise when his supposedly incompetent son defeats the talented young master. The voice of the man from earlier exclaims that the move performed by Leon is, in fact, the righteous tiger's fist. Continuing the man's sentence, Burn questions our hero. His voice shakes and he trembles while attempting to get up from the ground. This boy never fails to surprise us, always defying his body's limits to accomplish the impossible. Shocking jumps and sound gasps unfold from among the crowd of families that spectate the duel that has taken place, and they question Leon's righteous tiger's fist, asking how he is able to perform such a move without having learned any aura. Nervousness fills the arena as the surprised families begin to speculate that maybe the student had learned the skill in secret, which they believe is the only logical explanation. They still cannot seem to process our young hero's victory as he grips his fist to massage away the slight pain. Lemmer stands before the victorious Leon, who is standing in front of the defeated Baran. Meanwhile, Lemmer has to cover his gaping mouth with his hand to hide his astonishment at the shocking results. Assessing Leon's incredible show of intelligence, he elaborates that Leon countered Baran's attack by having him spin in the other direction. He mentions that just seeing the flow of one's opponent makes them worthy of being called a genius in the world of martial arts. Concluding his assessment, he explains that Leon used the flow to make his opponent's technique his own. Lemmer believes that this kind of talent easily sets someone on the path to being the strongest on the continent, and now that he has seen it for himself in Leon, he expresses that this is the kind of talent that the patriarch had wanted, naming it to be perpetual talent. The duel has come to an end, and Lemmer announces to the audience that the results speak for themselves, concluding the test by deeming our hero victorious. Just as the test is called to be concluded, a woman rushes past the crowd of families and makes her way to the battlefield, her arms reaching forward for a hug. The charging woman is noticed by Leon, who recognizes her as his mom, Sylvia. Her eyes fill up with awe and joy as she firmly hugs her son in a beautiful moment. Lunan's passing of the test is also celebrated by her parents, who hug their child and cry tears of joy too, with her father holding her close and comforting her. Burin is also taken away by his father's messenger, who walks with him with a gloomy look on his face. Burin's eye catches his father from among the crowd, glaring down at him with a disappointed look on his face before turning away and mixing in between the crowd. The poor boy feels the weight of his father's disappointment as he slouches over and falls into deep despair. This concludes the day, and night falls upon the continent. Soon after, an annex reveals Burn standing in front of his father's desk, who has his face turned away from his son. Silence fills the room as Burn continues to fall into a state of despair, but he is taken aback when Karen Zycart, the boy's father, suddenly calls his name with a heavy voice. It shakes the young warrior up, and he stutters as he responds to his call. Karen questions if the incompetent warrior remembers what he had been asked, and Burn states that his father had asked him to become the top trainee and not to lose to anyone. His voice shakes as he struggles to mutter the simplest of words in front of his intimidating father. The pressing father expresses that he had not asked much of his incompetent son, elaborating that he simply needed him to defeat the Slan family's Lunan and get the position of the top trainee. He then slowly turns his chair to face his son and immediately yells out in furious rage, exclaiming that he lost to the son of an insect who has already lost all of her status. He questions if Burn had intended to shame his father from the beginning. He continues to confront his son, asking if he wants to end up like his brother as well. This alerts Burn, who is shaken up at the sudden mention of the same treatment as his brother. Concluding the confrontation, Korin Zycart expresses that his son has already lost his first chance, but there is still room for him to redeem himself. So he asks him to become the top trainee once again by the time of their graduation. Done with what he had to say, the father commands his disappointing son to leave his sight immediately, and of course, Burn obeys in shame and despair. Walking out of the annex under the pale moonlight, he wipes away the sadness and holds his head in his hand, expressing that he must not miss this last chance if he wants to live like someone of the direct lineage from the Zygarde family. Concluding the declaration of confidence, he then smacks his fist against the wall in frustration, making it crack upon impact. I guess my dude is angry, but if you ask me, his father is just a bitch. Burn continues to curse our innocent hero Leon Zygarde, exclaiming that it's all because of that damn bastard. He blames him for putting him in such a dire situation with his father. Sadly walking with shame and regret, he wonders why he has been put in such a position when he had worked hard enough not to lose or fall behind anyone else.
Love the manhwa? Subscribe for more. Your support makes it all possible. Hit subscribe now!